Morning, everyone, and afternoon, depending on where you're at. Want to say hello and welcome to our week 2. Bring out your dead assets. We've got a bunch of very, very smart people on this call that are going to talk through how to take action. Right? This is Trustmark Cybersecurity Awareness Month. This is Trustmark Action Month, and we want you guys to take action on your MSPs and keeping them safe and making sure that you're doing the right things. And a lot of times it's really hard to start. So we're giving you little things to do to start taking action towards either earning a trust mark or just being more secure in your MSP practice. So I think we had a question for everyone last week, which was, hey, assign an ISO, right? An information security officer. So in the chat, I would love for you to say, yes, we've assigned somebody, and who that somebody is. Maybe not who that somebody is.
Yeah. Shh.
Yeah, don't tell anybody who
keep it OPSEC. We're good. Yeah, keep it OPSEC.
But let us know in the chat if you actually assign an ISO or you have an ISO assigned. So that'd be great. Matt, do we want to do introductions real fast here?
Yeah, let's do that. Alex, why don't you kick us off?
Hi, I'm Alex Spiegel, COO and co-founder of Choice Cyber Solutions. What else do you want to know about me, Matt?
That works. You live your life pretty much in compliance. Is that a fair statement?
I do live my life in compliance. It is my goal in life to put a structure around cybersecurity with regulatory compliance wherever possible. And my passion in this community specifically is helping MSPs to do that.
That's awesome. Alex, thank you so much. All right, Sarah, next, please.
I'm Sarah Goffman. I'm the CEO of TCE Communications. We're a technology-focused company, cybersecurity, software development. What else do you want to know, Matt?
Well, you know what? That'll do it. I appreciate you. Lisa Person, what do you do for a living? And tell us why you're here. I appreciate you. I waited till her screen froze up. So I don't know if that was the smartest move. We're already failing here, y'all. I apologize. Degley, good morning. Other unknown LinkedIn user, just because privacy settings, good morning as well. Degley, I'll ask you this real quick. Have you selected a ISO? Oh, are we having collision?
No, he's probably just got to type in the chat.
Yeah.
Well, while Degley's typing,
yeah.
Am I working? I am. Thanks.
Yeah, you're working.
I had to shut everything else down. Apparently, this takes up a lot of bandwidth. So I work with the CompTIA community, and I am specifically on the cybersecurity programs, and my official title is Member Engagement Programs. So it's all about talking to everybody and getting everybody engaged and helping them find the right people or the right program.
Awesome. I am in hotel Wi-Fi, and so I may very well drop off a few times.
I mean, it's Deadwood, South Dakota. It's like the internet here is not great.
So who's the lovely man sitting next to you? He wasn't on our last call.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself, Slagle, if we have enough bandwidth for that to happen.
Point last week during your call because it showed up at literally 20 minutes before I was supposed to be there, I think. My name is Jason Slagle. I'm president of CWR Inc. I'm in an MSP in the Toledo, Ohio area. I happen to be in Deadwood, South Dakota, because Mr. Matt and I gave a presentation to Wild West Hacking Fest yesterday about the hacking stuff we're doing.
Nice. I'm Dave Alton. I am the CTO here at Strategic Information Resources, an MSP based in Southern California. And like we said at the top, today we're going to talk about bring out your assets, right? Bring out your dead assets, your assets that live on your Wi-Fi, assets everywhere. So let's talk a little bit about what we want to do this week in our Take Action series.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna hit Alex up on this because she's our compliance lady here in the group. Alex, what are some of the strategies that people can do to get on top of all the assets that they have that are sitting in their networks and they either know or don't know about them?
Well, starting with an asset discovery in that case is always a good place to start. And documenting everything you have and where you are. In most cases, especially in the MSP world, people are doing a lot of the job, right? They know how they're procuring things, how their acquisition process works, but it's just all up here. So just documenting what you're doing today, making sure that you have a list of assets, network diagram, anything that you can have documented today and just put on paper that you're already doing is always a great place to start.
Alex, where would you tell people to start? Like literally, let's just go very, 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 very beginning. I don't have an asset list. This is who we're targeting today. How would you start an asset list, Alex? And where?
Do you have an RMM tool?
Right, they do. Let's say.
Okay, great place to start. Document what's there.
Sure.
Then think about anything else that could live on your network. A scanning tool could help just to tell you quickly like all the IPs and what they are. Another great place to start. Then documenting everything. And just thinking what you use every day. So like what mobile devices are allowed to touch your data? Are they company owned? Do you have printers? Do you have servers? Even if they're cloud-based, are you managing them? If so, that counts, at least to me, as part of your asset management.
Yeah.
And then what's your plan of documenting going forward? So every time you procure something, just keeping a list, an ongoing list, your office manager, whoever's doing the procurement, part of their responsibility is just adding to that list every time. And as you sunset devices, removing it from that list and moving it to the sunset list. It's really easy to manage once you get it organized.
Yeah, I love that because it really is that simple, I think, to get started. Slagle, do you guys have an asset inventory? I'm going to put you on the spot.
We do.
Okay. I was hoping so.
Yeah.
I didn't prepare for this. So that's good. I'm glad. All right, good. Where do you store it today?
It is a giant Excel monster right
Yeah.
now. Yeah. I have not found. I've looked at Snipe It, right?
Sure.
Like that's the tool that I think that eventually we'll probably land up on using it, but I have not found. I'm not bothered. It's really complicated, right? And I'm not bothered to set it up yet. So,
and there's a lot of asset classes, a lot of asset types, and it's so easy in Excel to add a column, or to add a type of asset, or to add a new row, right? Like, is anybody on here think that Excel would be something we would reject if someone said they did that, had an Excel file for their assets here? Would anybody disagree with that being a model?
No. In fact, I think start with Excel. Like I really feel like that there's some form of tactile thing that needs to happen here. This is like a walk or crawl, walk, run type scenario.
Yeah.
You can get one of those great tools that Jason mentioned. The problem is if you don't know how your assets work to begin with, chances are that tool is not going to do you a whole lot of good in the beginning, right? So understanding what you have just in a visceral way in an Excel spreadsheet and putting information in that Excel spreadsheet, I think is a great place to start versus trying to make it this really complex thing. I mean, one of the things that we talk about with this action series is don't make this harder than it needs to be. Amen. Right? Just assign an ISO, just start putting stuff in an Excel spreadsheet and you're going to have an asset list. In fact, we talked a little bit about this week, Matt, in our working group is, your asset list day one probably sucks.
Yeah. Let's call it 70%. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe you're lucky if you hit 70%.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So talk to me, Matt and Jason, talk to me a little bit about why it's so good to start wherever you are.
Okay. I say this a lot. Do not let perfect be the enemy of good.
That's how I get up on Excel.
Like, that's exactly it. Like,
I got tired of trying to be perfect and said, this is stupid.
I'll just write it in Excel.
Yeah.
And the reason I think of that too is like Dave, and Alex, you made this point and it was a great start to this, which is if you don't have the processes in place from cradle to grave, acquisition, it goes to the sheet, right? When I deploy it and I have a user assigned, it goes to the sheet. When I get rid of it, it goes to the sheet, right? And if you don't have that in place, putting in a system to do that, like let's say a Rumble or Run Zero or whatever it may be, isn't going to help you with that. You just have a big pile of stuff that isn't accurate. And I think the point is it's really about getting those just kinesthetic processes in place because it's easy when you think about a laptop,
Yeah.
But then when you start getting into all the other asset types, like my network devices, my IoT, my servers, my workstations, my virtual machines, all of those things, it gets so broad, y'all. And I don't want to turn this into an episode where we just beat apart all the different asset types.
Yeah, I mean, you beat me yesterday. Like I thought about it yesterday, and I'm like, I also have a bunch of ESP32s on the Office network, and they're not on my asset list. I didn't even think about it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh shit, now Matt's gonna call me out.
I want you to do it.
I gotta fix this.
I'm a big proponent of using the tools where you're comfortable. So like I am not an Excel person. It really overwhelms me. So mine's a Monday board.
Oh, totally.
Sure,
no,
same thing. Yeah.
I give you bonus points for Monday.
Documents. Sometimes, using a fancy tool is what's easiest for you. Just keep it as KISS. Keep it stupid simple. However you can, wherever you can. Do not overcomplicate it.
Oh, this is great. To add to that, don't let perfect be an enemy of good, but also don't demonize people who are not doing it right.
Yeah.
I actually watched a talk just recently at GERCON. A good friend of mine, George Camilles, an anthropologist, and he approached this the cybersecurity challenge from an anthropological perspective. And he looked at it and said that we actually have a shame problem in cybersecurity, right? How many times have you looked at somebody and said, you didn't know about this technique? How stupid are you? Oh my gosh, you don't know how to do. There's a billion things to do. Let's not ever demonize.
We've learned that recently.
Very humbly.
Matt, as an anthropologist, I second that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. And basically, he was going along this conversation, Sarah. In fact, maybe you elaborate on that. Like, help me understand why it's so important to belong instead of to ostracize people from a sociological and anthropological perspective.
So in general, people want to fit into their surroundings. They don't want to be seen as being different or standing out in a negative way. People want to stand out for their achievements, obviously, but they don't want to be seen as, oh, you're doing something wrong. You did a bad thing. Think about it when you're a kid. You don't want your parents to tell you that you did something wrong. So it's the same thing that we have with cybersecurity. And so one of the things we really need to focus on is making sure that we're encouraging people to do better and be better than they were the day before, as opposed to saying you're doing something wrong, but starting to help people lead, because we have different levels of basically security maturity. So we need to make sure that people are making sure that they're moving along to the path that they want to be on.
Yeah, 100%. And to your point of like social proof and belonging, right? And I think that's the point, is that we need to not ostracize. One of my strategies that I always take is I do try to poke fun at things. I do try to say there needs to be difference, but I don't like to single out people directly. And I don't like to say it. I usually try to be graceful when someone said something that just shocks the hell out of me. But that's, that's life, right? Other great comments coming in I don't want to miss. Degley came in and said, it really is simple. Sometimes we get too fixated on what the right or wrong way is. And I think that's the point of, like, remember, we're chasing 100% here. And I actually used to say this to my kids. As they were going through high school, they would get a B or a C. And I would get on to them and tell them they can be better. And I said, remember, when I'm getting frustrated with you, I'm judging a B to an A.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're an F. I'm getting on to you about how you make your bed up. I'm getting on to you about how you do your laundry. Those things are me saying, you're a pretty good kid, but I need you to be better at this, right? And so we just need to get people going down the path and remember that 70% is at least better than 0. 30% is better than 0. Yeah.
Right. And I totally agree with that. Is like,
and if you start with your tool, right, like that. Go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, the whole like chasing 100% is like, just work on 1% today, right? Just get better by 1%. Like,
that's
you don't
atomic habits.
Yeah, exactly. It is.
Exactly,
Yeah. You don't have to do it all at once. And I think that's why people get so stuck in cybersecurity, is they really feel like, oh well, I have so much to do, I can't think about this, I'm overwhelmed, I'm just not going to do anything, right? And what we're saying is reverse the script, right?
Yeah.
Do a tiny bit. Break this down into something that's so small, like you can get it done in an hour, and just do that. And that means you're a little bit better than you were yesterday, and just keep doing that every day. Like, if you could take an hour, not even an hour, if you could take 15 minutes out of your day every single day and work on something cybersecurity related that better protects your network or
hygienic
control.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is, but if you do that little bit every single day, it makes such a big difference at the end, right?
Dave,
I would recommend you block out 15 minutes a day and spend the first 15-minute period to create the list of other things you can do.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think to your point of like, would I ever think that I could just brush my teeth before I go to the dentist and now I'm good? Or do I brush my teeth every day?
The dentist doesn't know that trick.
Right. Yeah. He's like, I can tell you rubbed all the enamel off, man. Something else that I wanted to talk about too, when it comes to CIS and asset lists, in my thoughts, is that when you think about the way, I think people overthink this. 1.1 says have an asset inventory. But as you get into 1.3 and 1.4 and 5 and 6, and as you get into active and passive scanning, when you start thinking about it, it doesn't mean they have to connect to the Excel sheet. It doesn't mean that it has to be completely automated. That would be great. There are ideal ways to do that. Some of the tools do a great job of that. I've already mentioned one of them. But I will say you could still have manual processes that take the active scanning, parse it, and put it in the Excel sheet to make up for gaps that you've missed. And in the same way, passive scanning, when you find something that is an asset that you didn't know was an asset, you can have manual processes to bring that to your Excel sheet. So I do love having automated systems. I think that's the best of it. But there is definitely room for manual processes. Don't overthink that in my mind. Anybody want to talk on that?
I actually don't think you can get everything with automated systems in some cases. I mean,
It's tough.
Run Zero does a pretty an amazingly good job of identifying devices, but like one of the things I try to store on that asset list, you try to go to 2.1 a little bit too, right? Like what firmware version is running on that phone, right? Run Zero is not going to be able to determine that, right?
Yeah.
So there's some amount of like either very, very specialized tools or manual stuff that has to be done anyways. Yeah. Because I would argue that 2.1 means you have to log what firmware version is running on that phone.
Especially under the now broken out software classes in CIS 8.1, you're certainly correct. We're getting into firmware, we're getting into DLLs, but yeah.
I still
Matt,
feel like
Chris, sorry.
No, you go.
I saw
Chris
his comment. We'll get to it here in a second. Chris wants in? I'm not letting him in.
No, he is. I don't know if he wants in. I was going to go over his comment because I think.
We will. Yeah. Go ahead, Alex, and we'll come back to that.
I just feel like automation can't always be 100% trusted and still needs the human element anyway.
100%.
At the end of the day, you have to prove what you're doing for compliance as evidence, right? That's what you really need this list for. And, to just take care of your house in general and know what assets you have. But it's so much easier for me to just add it to a quick list than it is to double check the automation and make sure everything's working. Yeah. Sometimes simpler is just better.
Here's where, and I don't want to dissuade the simpler is better comment. I don't want to take that away. I agree with you 100%. I will say that there are methodologies of adding manual processes to automated systems to achieve the same function. In which they run Zero, for example, I might have a tag that I place on devices called authorized. I simply place, or retired that I simply place, right? Things to that nature. So I don't disagree though. Keep it simple before you ever go there. Don't ever go there before you have all the manual process. 100%. Right?
Know that you at least have a list to double check with a Run Zero, right? You need to start somewhere.
Well, you could. Yes, at least in the beginnings of transitions and process modifications, how you're doing it, those things. But I didn't want to break into that. I want to tell people on this call, go get the Excel sheet, do the Excel sheet. Do not go get Run Zero.
I'm actually curious what everyone here is doing.
Yeah, let's put that in the comments. I've already got one set Excel sheets.
You're doing I'm Excel, you're Monday. What are you, Dave?
I'm Excel.
Okay.
Sarah?
I'm IT Glue.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to use it. It's too noisy, right? Like it's like it. Yeah, I stopped using it because junk kept ending up in there. Like somebody would onboard a client system and it'd end up in my IT Glue, and then you'd have to manually go remove it, and I got tired of it.
Yeah, 100%. What's this? Bootstrap. I just want to read it real quick. Bootstrap for success, and then spend time on high value and even pain points to enhance and automate those. Don't automate everything. True story. Yeah. Sometimes your bootstrap is fine for things. Agreed. 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's worth noting that almost all of us here are using very manual processes to do this, right? And I think everyone thinks immediately that they need to go to an automated system. No, definitely not. This is an unsolved problem from technology-wise, I think.
And I think also, somebody said this earlier, it's a tactile aspect, right? We're going to get to Chris's comment because he's basically saying, Chris popped in. He said, I would argue that your inventory authorized probably shouldn't be entirely automated. I think you would find me a Supreme Court justice that would actually be a dissenting vote on that long term as a maturing process occurs. And the only reason I'll make this argument, and I'll just because I do want to tackle it, and y'all can talk me off the ledge. If you've ever used a platform like Run Zero, and you start looking at a very identity-centric model where you are very heavily limiting what is an asset, and you tie into their automated connection aspects, and then build in a process in which you tag them. And I do this. I run my home as a company. I have 196 assets right now, I think, in my house. And so I literally track them all. I authorize them. I have an approval process. I have a kill process. And I can make those things with massive paper trails. I can show you cradle to grave an asset, one that I created, one that was discovered, one that was checked, where it was ever seen, which ways it was ever healthy, what vulnerabilities it had, all of those things tracking down to the asset. I would make an argument that that efficiency gain in value is significantly higher than the paper capability. But now, the
authorization process is still manual.
It's a manual process. I go in and put in a tag and say, what did we discover today?
Yeah.
Oh, that shouldn't be here. Let's murder it with fire. Or that should be here, and we need to authorize it. So that's my argument. But you're right. There's a manual process, period. There has
The
to
question is Chris saying that the authorization
cannot be.
Yeah,
and that's what I was speaking towards earlier.
Yeah,
100%. Chris. We always agree and disagree. Yellowbrook Road. So good stuff. Anybody else want to make fun of me here on this one and tell me I'm crazy? I'm totally okay with dissent.
No, look, I don't think you're crazy, and automations always helps from an efficiency standpoint.
Yeah.
If it's not, then you shouldn't be doing it. It's not very automated if it's not helping. But I would say that crawl, walk, run methodology is really important here. And if you start with one of those tools, chances are you're going to miss stuff because you don't know how all your stuff works.
Yep.
And what we're seeing is that Excel spreadsheet, that Monday board, the paper that you write up, IT glue, however you do it. If you're not intimately familiar with that, it makes those automated tools so much harder to really get in.
You'll get a false sense of thinking you've done it.
Exactly.
100%.
And that's I think why I was saying it's visceral, right? It's got to be something you can touch, feel, see, hear, go in and work it. And once you figure out that it's oh, well, this is really hard and it's I think I could automate this. I think that's the point where you go, okay, yeah, it makes sense to start looking at some automations. And again, crawl, walk, run. Start with those automations being really, really simple, and then graduate into more and more, automated systems that do work the way you want it to.
In general, I will always argue you can't automate a process you don't understand.
Exactly.
Right? So like if you haven't done it by
agree.
hand and you don't know what you're doing, how are you automating it?
You're just going to automate your death.
Throwing shit at the wall and hoping it works, right?
Right.
When we do automations in the company, the first step of that is always a flow chart.
Sure.
Right. Like you draw out the step. It can be very high level.
You even storyboard our presentations before you make them.
Yeah.
So 100%. Storyboard and line out the process so you can see it. And I'd also say that this comes back to if you don't understand something and then you automate it, I think you generally will make it way worse than had you tried to do it manually and learn kinesthetic.
You'll also never understand it.
Let's see what this one.
That's
Somebody's got a great question. It says, would you say that it's harder to stop the propagation of a threat or something if you have advanced automation tools versus pen and paper? Like how a doctor might say it just has to run its course before we can treat it. I don't know that I feel that way.
Yeah, I don't feel that way at all.
I don't think so. Because what you're looking at is lateralization, spread, expansion. I want to stop that as quickly as possible. And the more I can automate that, the better.
Yeah, and those things happen so fast that like you can't, there's no pen and paper stopping that stuff typically.
And I have let ransomware run its course and it does not get better.
Yeah.
Wait, you can't just ignore ransomware? I thought that was a new trick. Just ignore it. Who cares?
I thought that was the business model.
I'm teasing. I'm not making fun of you. Comment. I apologize. I just thought it was funny. No, that's fantastic. And great. Keep the questions coming. This is fantastic. We'll do this a lot if people have those kind of questions.
We had a lot more spicy in the prep call for this yesterday. Where'd it go?
Yeah, we did. I know. We kept it less spicy. I will say, though, let's tackle the other side of this, right? The why. Anybody want to tackle why assets matter? I mean, just for a little bit of why you should have an asset inventory?
Oh, this is Alex. I'm going to let Alex tackle this.
Well, what I was thinking of your last comment and was going to jump in and then it went somewhere else was, what are you documenting exactly, right? So obviously start with a list, like just write down, well, not on paper, but document everything you have. But then what are you documenting towards? Like, I always pick some type of compliance because it's a very structured set of rules, right? So like any cybersecurity best practice framework is pretty much very similar. Like
the Trustmark or the CIS or all of them.
CIS, NIST-CSF,
Yep,
ISO
NIS2.
Yeah, you pick your flavor, doesn't matter. But you have to define what that asset is, or what the type of asset. Is it a network device? Is it an end user device? Is it a server? Is it an IoT device? And then maybe get more granular than that. Like it's a file server or the function of the actual device. It is Alex's laptop. And really define a little bit of the scope. So like, and then from there, how you're going to keep up with it is really important. So like, I don't want to overcomplicate things and say, create a policy before the list, because that's not the case here. I'm not trying to sell that at all. Create the list, just put it down, but then figure out like what the rules are in the compliance that meets your business best, ideally the Trustmark, and map towards that. And just start. And then what goes into the asset management is also, the asset life cycle. So just creating the list is great, but how are you going to maintain that list forever?
100%.
You also get ancillary side effects. Like one of the things I put on our asset list is the patch frequency for some of these systems.
Yep.
Right? Like it is when I'm going through them. There are systems that are more business critical that unless there are like high or critical CVEs, I'm only going to patch them quarterly because it's disruptive to take them down. Right. And you can store things like that on that list also.
Some of the things we add in are expiration dates of any license codes that need to be added on to make sure that we're not losing them. Making sure that we're updating. So same thing that you're talking about, Jason.
Y'all went exactly where I was hoping we'd go with this, which is it becomes the base for everything. Yep. Why do you have a column in there for when it's patched? Because we have to know when it's patched and what its patch life cycle is. Why do you have a column in there for when it's retired and how it's going to be retired and how the data was wiped? Because I have to say that somewhere. In fact, when I did my work with CIS and the taxonomy mapping, I think we found that there were like 75 safeguards that tie into 1.1. in some form or fashion, right? From if you don't know what an asset is, how are you going to set which firewall runs? I see Alex about to say something, so I switched to her.
Sorry.
I always see it.
Like, how do you patch a device that you don't know exists? How do you provide maintenance for a device that you don't know exists?
Schrodinger's device.
How do you create an acceptable use policy for how that device is supposed to be used if you don't know that it exists?
Amen.
What data lives on that?
Yeah.
Right. What data lives on that device? Yeah. Right. Yeah. How is it used?
How else would you tackle later controls like having separate admin workstations from user workstations? That would now be, this is an admin workstation. It must be defined as a delineable asset, right? And so I think, Alex, you hit it obviously right on the head, which is if you don't know what the assets are, then you can't do any of those things and apply that to it in that regard. We got another comment, visibility control, knowing what assets you have, hardware, software, data allows for organizations to manage and protect them effectively. The visibility is essential for compliance with various regulations and really how you're going to do what you're going to do. Like genuinely, like at a tactical level, if you don't know what your assets are, if you don't understand where the data flows, if you don't understand the humans that touch the data, you don't understand the identity plane, you will lose the data in the CIA triad, period. Regardless of your compliances or regulations, you will lose, right? The ransomware will happen or the egress of data will happen, right? Schrodinger's device, thank you so much. That's a Slagle original, right? If it's I don't know about the asset. It's either dead or alive. I don't know. It's Schrodinger's device at this point. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to tackle. I think this is probably the same user that had our had that first comment that we kind of talked about, where would you say it's harder propagation? And,
sure.
And then I think they kind of jokingly say, I thought if you let a virus run its course, it makes you more immune. But here's the thing. I think that is actually a somewhat true statement.
He's not wrong.
Because
I know what you're going.
If you're paying attention, right, and you have a ransomware event and that event resolves in whatever way it is, you paid the ransom and you got your systems back. you're going to go back and you're going to say, okay, how do we do better so this doesn't happen again, right?
Somehow budget appears.
Right.
It's funny how that
Magically, I can spend a lot more money on protecting us. But that is the idea of letting it run its course. While you're not going to let ransomware run free and wild and just do whatever it wants, you're going to stop it where you need to. You are going to go back and say, hey, look, what could we do better? And knowing where your assets are is such a great place to start. Anyway, that was all I wanted to bring up. Make sure that was kind of finished up there. So
yeah, 100%. That's awesome. I'm going to work on throwing a comment up on here. Let's go around. We're getting close to time. We don't need to beleaguer this point. I think the get started is the biggest part of this.
Yeah.
But I have a link. Let me plop it over here.
Yeah. So sometimes getting started for me is the hardest part, and just figuring out like what I need to get started on. So this CIS template, I think, helps a lot. Maybe not everything applies to you. Maybe you need another column, like Sarah was talking about, for when warranties are expiring, etc. But at least it just separates it into hardware, software, and sensitive data, and you can just start.
Yeah, can you get that as a QR code so it's easier for people to type?
Yeah, I can get that for them, no problem. Yeah, in fact, let me run it through my link shortener with like determining which OS is reaching out and put different links for different. Never mind.
Yeah.
Just go to security.org and type in asset tracking spreadsheet.
Yep,
Right.
yep. And if you think about it, like that's the great call out, Alex, is like it's sometimes easier to edit than it is to create for some people. So if you are one of those people, this is a great way to do it. You can delete columns. CIS won't get mad at you. Like you can change stuff around. Like you're good.
And
so yeah,
honestly,
it's your asset list. It's not CIS's, right? So maintain it however you want to, but maintain it.
The other thing is, this is a thing that LLMs it's actually really good at, right? Like there are a lot of things that I think we're overhype AI at, but if you ask ChatGPT to create you a template CSV or asset list tracking spreadsheet, what it comes out with will almost certainly be usable. And it's a great way to just start something like that.
Yeah, it's true.
I do feel the need to give two quick caveats, because I saw both of these things in the last month. One is, please do not put your admin passwords on there.
Holy Jesus. Holy Jesus, Alex.
Wait, Alex, we're not supposed to use admin.
Not put your BitLocker identification.
Oh my God.
Just please keep them separate, somewhere safer. Thank you.
I think that goes to a general conversation though, Alex, of be OPSEC. Think what's sensitive, like that BitLocker password's probably not the best thing to put that disencrypts your drive, that if it was ever lost that you would have that. I mean, it's great call out.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen it just with a label maker on somebody's laptop.
Oh my Jesus, come on, don't keep killing me this morning.
A step further than that. But yes, God. I saw that both of those things within the last month. So while I thought that it was a given and it wasn't an MSP, I'm not a tech savvy user. I just felt the need to share.
Yeah. And again, listen, there's no shame in that. And,
yeah, it's fair.
And it's probably not wrong, but you can do better. Right?
Well, I'm not trying to shame anyone.
No. I didn't think you were, Alex. Not at all. I'm just
right? So that is, to me, is just scary data, not in the right place. But we don't know what we don't know, and no shame. At least you have your software and assets documented.
Exactly.
You're in the right direction. Yeah. But thank you.
All right, let me see. Will this not? Well, I have a lower third. It will. So, joking coming in from the comments. Oh my God, please QR. Obviously sarcasm. Talked about dynamically created QRs and phishing email. Yeah, very good. Yeah, no, I've hated me some QRs for a long time. But link shorteners are in the same boat, right? You can't necessarily tell what's happening there either sometimes. So.
Yeah, my last couple of secure talks, at least one of the links has been a Rickroll.
And I think to your point, store offline, whether that be BitLocker keys or whether they're stored in a separate password vault manager or whether they're stored in some type of methodology like that. But I think the biggest point is you don't want encryption keys not encrypted somewhere. And the likelihood of your Excel sheet being an encrypted asset with Azure information protection on it is probably fairly low. In which case, then there are some challenges of that key not being encrypted and therefore having cryptographic keys or secrets stored somewhere that is not the intended place for secrets. But we are not here for secrets management. However, catch us later, and we will be talking about it at some point. I think actually we're due a beard bander on that or something. We talked about doing secrets, or somebody talked about doing secrets management with me. It was Dom Kirby. But anyways, any final thoughts, y'all? Let's go around the room. Dave, you're already up with your beautiful face, so let's wrap this thing up. What's your call to action for people for us to come back to next week? And we want to see you next week to tell us about this.
Yeah, get in, start your spreadsheet. Use the one that we put in the chat. Have ChatGPT build one for you. But get in and at least take what's in your RMM and put it in that spreadsheet. Just do that. Just do that much, right? Just do that much. And that's, you've started, and you'll find that it gets easier and easier.
Well, I don't know. This can be easy to top that. So I'm gonna make Sarah go next.
I would say just make sure everybody knows what your source of truth is, so people know where that document is, know where to go to find it, and make sure it's updated on a regular basis.
Oh, I love you brought up source of truth. That is brilliant, Sarah. Yeah.
On the software side, go through your credit card statement. You're paying for all of these cloud subscriptions every month.
That's exactly what I did, Alex.
Probably save money too.
That's exactly
You'll
it.
find a bunch of stuff you're not using anymore. You're still paying for.
We found 127 software applications that we were paying for or using in some way like that, and then whittled it down to about 65. Right. Yeah. So it was, great call out, man. These are all good ones. All right, I'm gonna do myself the worst and go last. Slagle, got what you got?
Yeah. Remember, there are assets that your RMM cannot manage. Right. Like I am perfectly content to persist on a printer. So anything that is on the network is definitely
an ESP32W room.
Start with your RMM tool, but very quickly expand beyond that and consider everything that is present on the network.
Yeah, great call out. Great call out. So we've really covered at this point, go start. We heard that from Dave, right? We talk about actual having well-stored secrets. Be careful and conscientious of what you put in it, right? We talked about having a source of truth. And for me, I think the only thing that I could add is really just start getting these things in your system processes. If you have a purchasing person, bring them into this fold and have them be part of the asset management process. If you have someone that assigns assets, make them part of the asset management process, whether that's a ticket, whether that's actual access to the Excel sheet to make those changes themselves and document, whatever that might be in your choice. Consider the process. And I'm really regurgitating what Alex said much earlier, but consider the process and make sure that as you're doing this, it doesn't just become this one-time effort that you get done and then it sucks in 3 months. Because if I'm assessing you, the thing I would want to look at is, are you deltaing this? You mean to tell me in 3 years you haven't had an asset die or be replaced? We probably have a problem, right? And so just get systemic functions in place, even if they suck and break right now. You'll be able to track them down and make them better over time. Anybody else want to close any thoughts, or are we just going to wrap this thing up?
I think the final thought here is just start. Just start.
We're going to end on that. Yeah, just start. See y'all next week. And what, like Linux? See y'all. Thanks for the troll out. It's not wrong on the RMM conference.